In this episode, we're going to be talking a lot about the regenerative aspects of how we can heal ourselves using energy medicine, using kind of basic treatments such as red light therapy, grounding. We're going to be talking about the food we eat, how bad it is and how much better we need it to be. Additionally, we're always going to be talking about regenerative therapies and how stem cells can really help us to not only feel better, but be better, but also to heal ailments that in the past we couldn't really treat. Now we can treat and we can actually make you better. So stick with us with this. Hey guys, I'm Dr. George Armandaris.
All right, so Dr. G, we're here today and people are interested in like the whole grounding, red light. They say it's like the natural way to boost your body. Like, can you tell me more about what's actually effective? And people say you need like these EMF or these pads that you can use, but like, what's like the alternative? I know there's natural ways to do things without paying for all these products.
Well, the basis of all of that is you look at, this is where it comes down to biohacking, and you see a lot of well-known people on social media talking about this. As an example, red light is a big type of treatment that we use in medicine in all different facets. Obviously, it was really started during veterinarian medicine, and they found out how good it did for the animals that, hey, why don't we try it for us? And so we've been utilizing it in all aspects of medicine. Pain management is huge, and that's where I've used it. But now it's also an area for wound healing, for just recovery from, if you're doing some type of athletic competition, or if you just work out a lot or whatever, it can treat that. And it's nice because it works on various wavelengths that stimulate cellular repair. Now, I don't know if you've seen this before, but people have also talked about methylene blue. Now, methylene blue is a particular substance that is utilized in some of the holistic ways of treating cancers and overall just stability of the mitochondria within the system. The mitochondria is like the workhorse of the cells that help you to get better, increase your cellular respiration, turnover of these cells, and just healthier living. And so methylene blue, as an example, and the reason I bring that up is because that's a kind of a hot topic that people have been talking about. Even our, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but anyway, it'll come to me. These guys are really trying to add this to our health, the health of the United States.
RFK, is that
RFK? Why can't I think of his name? RFK, come on now. And a lot of people have pictures of him, especially through social media, of him drinking something blue and talking and his tongue's blue. Well, that's the methylene blue that he's utilizing. As an anesthesiologist, I would give that for certain surgeries that we do so that we can see, or I should say, so the surgeon could see where they were doing surgery, because it would turn certain tissue blue. And so they could see it within the red of the blood and all the tissue. And so, but what they've found over probably decades is that it's very, very important to cellular respiration. When I say cellular respiration, it's just improving how your mitochondria work, and it's just improving how the whole system works to repair you. And so utilizing red light therapy stimulates that. And so that's why people utilize red light therapy along with methylene blue now. So that's kind of that's big
red and blue. What, like, does that have to?
Well, these are working. That's just the actual color.
Yeah.
Ironically, methylene blue was used as a dye back in the 40s in India, a dye for clothing, and just on a whim, some researchers were utilizing that for I think it was more on some type of cellular type of.
What does it come from? What does it derive from?
Methylene blue is it's just that it's a dye. It's a dye, and they did research on this because they had noticed that when certain tissue would come into contact with this, that it would kind of improve or it would heal. I mean, not necessarily that it was a tissue that wasn't working well, but it would just change the cellular structure of that. And so they just started doing a lot more research, and they found out that this is actually something that can really help cells kind of repair themselves. The cool thing about red light therapy is that at a certain wavelength, it stimulates something like methylene blue, but it also stimulates within your own system, your own mitochondria, even if you didn't use methylene blue, to repair itself. Okay. And so we're utilizing, I'm sure you remember ADP and ATP. These are just these
mitochondria of the cell. I remember
yeah,
that.
and these are the energy nucleic acids that really help us, be stronger.
Don't they also sell those ATP 5s or something like that?
They do. Now, I don't know how well those particular type of over the counter supplements work. The thing about supplements, and we'll see what RFK does. It's not regulated. So some supplements are amazing, and some supplements have a lot of fillers in them, and they're not as good.
I heard some of them they were filling up with grass.
Grass, flour, sugar. There's just these different types of fillers that you can fill them with pretty much anything. And the FDA doesn't regulate that. And this is the one thing that I'm like, well, I wish they kind of regulated it. Since it's not regulated, there can be some issues. So you don't know exactly what you get. And that's why a lot of times you see when different companies are advertising, they say, oh, it's third party tested, which you want to have third and fourth party testing, meaning it's just a different company they're not associated with, testing what they have so they can tell you this purity is 98% or 99%. So that aspect of it is really good. So you always want to look for stuff like that. And so red light can help with these different compounds in a sense of just repairing your body. And so when I talk about biohacking, you want to, red light is just a small part of it. I mean, you can also do grounding. Grounding is where we have an electrical potential in our system. And then we're over here looking at phones and touching, any electronic equipment. This is just building up in our system.
I've actually been shocked so many times. Ever since I got my Tesla, and I don't know if that has to do with it, but I got it, and I notice I get shocked more when I touch my outlet.
And you need to. It's because you have to depolarize, and how you depolarize is the depolarization with
from the earth,
from the earth. Now, some people have those pads, those. They're just
grounding,
they're just simple pads that help you to
mats are like those are like $300 or $500.
They can be. The easiest and cheapest thing to do is get up in the morning, go on some grass, not cement, just grass or dirt.
It can be dirt too, right? It doesn't have to be.
No, yeah, it can be
because we're in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be clay and dust. But if you can get on there barefoot and just do some good old fashioned breathing exercises, you can do a lot for your body, more than you think. And you kind of, all of the electrical stimulation that you've had throughout the prior 24 hours, you can really dissipate that. And so that's very important in our bodies. We didn't, because we conduct electricity extremely well. And so just like any battery, we have to either recharge ourselves or we have to let that charge go depending on what we're doing. If we keep it in our system, it can, there's an effect.
Yeah. What is the effect of that? Because I've walked around my house and like, literally 10 times in a day, I've actually been so charged before I touched and a spark showed up from my finger.
Yeah. No. And you're probably walking around and because of
carpet.
It's static electricity. But once again, you're like the transistor and you're just building it up and you have to release it. Yeah. And so once you touch a metal, usually a doorknob, you're going to release that. Which is good. You don't want to keep that in there. You would wish that.
What does that do to your body though? Having like high charge.
Okay. That's why energy medicine is so huge. Now, when I talk about energy medicine, you talk about frequencies, you talk about the PEMF, the grounding to a point. PEMS is pulsed electromagnetic fields. These magnetic fields can control, down to the cellular level, control our polarity, positive and negative. It's pretty straightforward with that. And I don't know if you see, let's say professional golfers, they usually wear these copper wristbands.
Yeah.
The reason is because it maintains the polarity going. They're not going opposite. They're all going to the right or to the left, meaning they're all going the same way. So the circuit is flowing well. When that doesn't happen and you have positive going here and negative going here, but maybe another positive going in, you have a amalgamation of pulses that are going where they shouldn't be going, and it causes the cell to not work as well as it should. And so that's where inflammation comes into play. And then that cell gets inflamed and a lot of things can happen
because they're
with that.
swinging too, their shoulders.
Yeah, well,
and
you know,
hands
and so a lot of those guys wear that. And the reason I bring up golfers is because I see a lot of them, and I've had a couple of friends that were avid golfers, and they said, yeah, they believe in this stuff like totally, in which I do too. I think there are so many ways that we can recharge our bodies without, you know, taking medication and doing things that, yeah, may help. But a lot of times it's just, if you can calm your mind, you can utilizing, there's sound frequencies, there's acoustic wave therapy, obviously the PEMF using magnetic fields. I mean, if you can just Google Tesla, and he believed in this, you know, fully. And ironically, I just read a story about him. Like, he would never go near any type of pearls,
Oh.
just like the pearls that, like a pearl necklace, that kind of thing.
Really?
And the reason is because he believed the energy within pearls, specifically pearls, held a lot of negative energy from the ocean. And so we're all, and Einstein said that, you know, we're all energy. And that energy is what, you know, what kind of keeps us going. And so when we die, yeah, our body dies, but we're pure energy. We still go. We just go in a different form. Okay. We don't cease to exist. We just go in a different form. And so he wouldn't be anywhere near people, women, because those are the people that were wearing pearls. He just wouldn't go near them, and he wouldn't wear them. He wouldn't handle them. He wouldn't do anything like that.
Well, with that being said, people say that the actually there's so much junk in the ocean now, and oysters filter, I think, like 30 metric, like 30, I don't know, is it meters or metric tons or something a year or something?
Yeah,
of water.
And I'm not as familiar with that, but see, that brings it back then. They didn't know
They're filter feeders. So when you eat, and I love eating oysters, like they say they're great for you, but now they're saying that they're like full of plastic or something.
It's
now
the heavy metals and the microplastics.
like, because I can imagine 100 years ago it'd probably be a different story.
It was a different story. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of pollutions that we have.
I even heard that the Fukushima in Japan, that water was affected, but because of the way that the current is over 10 years, it's been affecting all of the sea life in the West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy how that, and it's, you know, if you think about stuff like that, then you think about Chernobyl that happened in 1986, and there's still effects from that. And that was so long ago. But a lot of these things, and, you know, getting back to this energy type of medicine, it's fascinating. And I think as we learn more and more about it, a lot of people, you listen to it, and, you know, like when I was going through medical school, we talked about it for like maybe 20 minutes in medical school, and people were like, well, could it happen? Yeah, but there wasn't really good understanding, good research. There wasn't good electrical type of machines that could, you know, harness that type of energy and change it and help you the energy or the electric potential within bodies, you know, to heal them. But now there's been a lot of research with that, and we've studied a lot with that. And so it's pretty cool. And so that's one of the kind of the natural stuff. And red light is a part of that. It's a very small part of it, but you can go on Amazon and get a red light machine for, you know, $115, even less than that. And those are really good machines, not only for longevity or just your health, but it's also good aesthetically, and it can do a lot of things. Then obviously for pain management, your joints and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that are great with that. And then grounding goes with that, so you can dissipate that electrical potential within your body. And so, you know, all our cells run very, very well, but we get too much electrical energy, whether positive or negative, you know, it can cause some issues in our body.
Yeah, like what I'm just curious, what's like the issue? Have you heard of what issues can be caused?
Well, where I can relate to it in the sense that from what I do is I've done wound therapy. Okay. And so there are actual wound dressings that will allow for a wound, let's say a deeper wound, even a minor wound, but even deeper burns and things of that nature, to heal faster by decreasing what's called a biofilm. A biofilm is what goes over what your body produces over an infected wound. And you have to dissipate that. The more biofilm you have, it's actually bad, and you can get an infection. It can make you sick, and really bad things can happen. Well, these bandages with all they are usually magnets or small batteries that they're one and done. Once you use it, it dissipates the electrical energy in that wound and it helps stabilize it and maintain the moisture. It doesn't dry it out. So wounds will heal quicker. And so that's something so basic. Red light therapy. If somebody has a deep wound, we'd put them in front of a red light lamp and let them, for 20, 30 minutes, several times a day. It will heal that wound a whole lot faster because it is ramping up the cellular respiration of the mitochondria in that wound or in that particular.
So almost like you're creating a more of a safe environment for the body.
That's you said the word environment. You're creating an environment where utilizing this type of electrical potential or electrical
energy. It's more natural for the body.
It is. And our bodies can heal anything. It really can. It's just that we don't give it the right things. One of the other aspects that's, I wouldn't say it's cheap, unfortunately, but that you don't have to buy a machine or anything is whole foods. If we could just get more and more whole foods, and then how we alluded to RFK, he wants to, cut out some things like, if you look at some of and trust me, when I was younger, I would eat all these breakfast cereals, but if you really, now that I'm a doctor and I can evaluate what's in them, I was like, man, they sure tasted good, but they were not good for me.
No, I look at I heard about all of it and I started researching specifically because of RFK. And I was like, holy crap, we grew up eating that.
Yeah.
All of us, most Americans. And I mean, my best advice if somebody really can't get their diet in check is save up some cash and just move to Japan for a few months.
Yeah, you can do that.
Move to Okinawa.
Which would still be quite expensive. Italy is one of those countries that
Turkey.
They've really changed up whatever their FDA or their whatever governing body kind of controls that. The food that they allow you to have they're very specific.
Have you been to Greece or Turkey?
I have not been to either.
Those are the food there. I mean, you don't even need to worry about regulation because they don't eat anything that's not from the earth.
Yeah.
And they don't have it's literally, it's all farmers. They just send it. No, barely any pesticides. I don't even think they use pesticides.
No, they're not allowed to use it.
Yeah.
About 4 years ago, I was in Sicily. And the food over there is all just homegrown. You can't find a Walmart or a Home Depot or they don't have things like that over there. But the food is so amazing. It is incredible. And then obviously you talk about Japan, Okinawa as an example, but Sicily, these are these blue zones.
And these are all the highest life expectancy in the world is, I think, still Okinawa.
Yeah. I mean, you have patients, I say patients, you have people in their 90s and even over 100 still, working out, socializing, doing all this stuff. So that's what's awesome about, kind of this holistic way of doing medicine. And more I'm learning, of the 100% of what I've learned in medical school, I've probably only utilized maybe 15 or 20%, but because everything's so new now and there's more, the approaches are going toward
the new is the old.
Yeah, I know, the holistic and more naturopathic type of things. So, and this is like nutrition. Everybody always rags on us in medical school. We don't talk about nutrition. That's like one day of the entire 4 years. We maybe talk about nutrition, but it is so important. I mean, it's totally important. And I think if we had just a little bit better food that kids when they're young that they would eat or we could purchase or whatever, you'd be surprised how much healthier.
One of the biggest things that I would like to work on, it's really annoying, is the inner cities. It's not that the kids don't have access to cheap food. It's that the fact that expensive food is healthy and cheap food is unhealthy.
Which is, I mean, it's
an
crazy.
Injustice.
Yeah, it really is. And then, depending on the programs in which that the government subsidizes,
also, which they're giving the kids, is a bunch of manufactured contracts.
Yeah. And it's crazy because, and this is the one thing why I keep bringing up RFK, whether you like him or not, if he can make even subtle changes, that will be a big win.
Didn't they just ban red dye number 40 or something
like that? Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's great, and it's just calling to terms these different food producers or manufacturers, that, you can't be just giving the public these types of processed foods, and you want to eat as many, as much whole foods as you possibly can, but within the budget that you have, and that's just, that's kind of a sad connotation in the whole, because everybody should be allowed to have that, shouldn't be because whether you're wealthy or not wealthy.
Yeah,
you can't have
yeah.
it. So
on the other hand, though, I've also seen people who have EBT and they're allowed to buy lobster with it. So, I mean, I'd totally be doing that if I had it.
Well, at least I'd go a little bit with lobster rather than because if for EBT they were also having soda, chips, and just a lot of used to back when I was growing up when somebody would be on food stamps, and we didn't have, they call it EBT now, it's just good old-fashioned food stamps back there. It would be milk, eggs, bread, flour, rice, beans, very basic stuff.
Which was approved.
But it was approved, and that food was better than the kind
Most
of
of the
food
food
that they have now.
Now you can get EBT, but then you're buying like these little Debbie snacks or fruit roll-ups.
And I'm like,
I've seen that.
Don't get me wrong, they're delicious, but they're not good for you.
Yeah, so my father owned a gas station, and I worked there for like a year, and it was in a lower income area. They were EBT, and I mean, those little Debbie snacks live off of EBT money. That company probably would be out of business if it wasn't for EBT.
And I get that in certain situations before there were still grocery stores that had relatively good food in that area.
It still exists honestly, so you still have the choice. But the problem is people, I think, are probably trying to live off of a certain budget with EBT. And so if you wanted to get like salmon, you'd have to choose like, do I want like 20 pounds of groceries, or do I want like 2 pounds of healthy?
Exactly.
That's annoying. Whole Foods allows EBT, I think. All of them do. But the problem is like, how much can you get for $100?
There has to be. And that's where, somebody like RFK, if he can subsidize, if the government can subsidize
being healthy,
those type of things, of just being healthy. Everything we do, and I'm referring to physicians that are doing more naturopathic, doing more holistic type of treatments. And then, as I alluded to before, stem cells, utilizing stem cells. I mean, unfortunately, it's a lot less than it was in the past, but it's still very expensive to get these type of treatments. Now we can, in my clinic, we can harvest the stem cells from a patient and then send it off.
How long does that process take?
It takes about 2 months, and we take some blood from them, make sure they don't have certain viruses and so forth. And then we grow those stem cells, and I do adipose derived, meaning it's just coming from fat. Now, you can also do a bone marrow, which those are really the only two places you can
Did
get
that
stem
exist
cells.
like 20 years ago or no?
It did, but it was... people just weren't doing it unless they were in the research.
Did it exist like 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, it did, because that's how we've been doing bone marrow transplants for probably 50 years, probably longer, a lot longer than that.
So my father had to do bone marrow for his older sister. She ended up passing away. I wasn't born yet, but she had leukemia, and then she needed bone marrow from him. He was a blood match. If this was back in 1981, 82, would it have been stem cells still or no?
No, yeah, that's what it does when you get a bone marrow transplant. I mean, to be fair, like I could go right now in your bone marrow and pull out 8 to 10 cc's of thick purple blood, and that's bone marrow blood. And in that would have anywhere from 60 to 100,000 stem cells. And those are great stem cells, don't get me wrong. But when you're getting a bone marrow transplant, that type of blood, because you have to it has to match and everything like that, they would use that to reboot the person's entire system. So what they using radiation, they would kind of kill their immune system. That's why those people, used to die a lot from infections because they didn't have an immune system. And they put that bone marrow transplant within them, or the cells that they took, and it kind of reboots that system. And hopefully that you grow those new healthy cells and you don't have leukemic cells.
This is interesting. So you said it reboots. So would that work for, let's say, like current, like modern day, right? How does that apply to modern day? Like, let's say something that's old, that could be possibly eradicated soon. Like maybe HIV was big back in the day. Do you think it could pass through that, or
no? With HIV, it's different because there's certain components and certain cells of the immune system, and there are very specific cells that are affected with HIV. And so right now we don't have a per se cure, but the medications, like before that, all they had was AZT, and it had a lot of side effects to it. And so now they'll keep it down. It's much like the herpes virus. If you have to, there's medications to bring the viral load down to nil, where you can't even test it. Doesn't mean it's gone. It just means you just can't test it. And they can do that with HIV now, but it's not gone.
You know how there's like some things that were complicated in the past, today they're could be eradicated or completely transformed. Like, for people who are listening, what have stem cells done that today is like simply, it would honestly help a lot today versus back in the day? It might have been complicated, but like, because of stem cells, we're able to take care of these problems. Like, what are the biggest things it can solve?
Some people say that it's great research. I think it's great research, but some people say, oh, it's not a double-blind randomized study, which they, say it has to be that for it to be working like it's supposed to. Okay. Stem cells now, depending on whether they're adipose derived or if they're from bone marrow, there's been patients that were paraplegic. They can walk now. People that were totally paralyzed or couldn't feel anything, they can slowly
Because of
start
nerves,
feeling.
or
Yeah, the nerves regenerate, but they regenerate with the regenerative properties of the stem cells.
So if somebody
We didn't know
fell
how to
off,
do that back then. It's just it's just kind of slowly improved over time, and that's what's the kind of the most amazing.
but
thing
like,
about
what
it.
if somebody's completely paralyzed, like from the neck down, fell off a balcony?
They're
Completely.
right now they're
figuring this out.
Yeah, they're figuring this out, and there have been guys. I mean, in different countries, we can do it here, but it's still under research base, and you definitely can't say, oh, this is going to cure this or fix this, because you don't know. Some people, they've tried it on and didn't do anything to, but then some people, they've tried it on and they're still trying to figure out why it worked on some and it didn't work on others, and these people were able to slowly learn how to walk again.
So do you think like something like paralysis, like in your professional opinion, do you think something like paralysis is going to be a thing of the past one day?
Yeah, I think it will. I think we'll get better and better with how we can repair nerves, especially nerves in the spinal cord, because that's where it is. I mean, if you can repair it in the spinal cord, then that person's going to be able to eventually. It's not going to happen overnight, but will eventually be able to move and walk and feel and such. And so, do I think that's a
Like, how many years
possibility?
out do you think that is?
It varies, because there's been some reports that they've treated patients with their own stem cells. They've grown them and injected intrathecally, is where it goes right through the dura of the spinal
Spine, right?
cord,
Yeah.
and then it goes all the way up to your brain. And so they're putting in 100 million, 500 million, a billion stem cells that they've grown. And so some of these people have had some amazing results. Now, they get up after a week and start running? No, but they can move their legs, and then they can slowly, they have to still relearn how to walk, and then eventually to run, and how their legs move. And do I think that utilizing stem cells will eventually, cause us to treat things like this a little bit easier? Absolutely. It's just right now, there's been reports, and there's been probably thousands of people that have had some benefit from stem cells. As medical professionals, we say, well, this is anecdotal. This is something that's just, it happened and it's wonderful, but I can't reproduce it. If you can't reproduce it, then you can't just say, oh, this does this. Some people it works great. You'll have 100 people and 80 will do great, and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then 20, they don't get anything from it, and they're like, but why? Is it something that I gave them? Did I not process the stem cells right? Is it their stem cells? Maybe they needed something else other than just stem cells. It's hard to say. We don't know.
Do you think they'll be using it in conjunction with like Elon Musk's?
It could.
What's it called? The Neuralink. Yeah,
Neuralink's very interesting, because Neuralink, it's going to stimulate parts of the brain that can help us to kind of repair ourselves.
Yeah.
Like there's certain people that feel that, just taking care of we should be able to repair everything in our body. And so stimulating certain parts of the brain with Neuralink can allow that person to quite possibly
Is that going to be
heal.
similar to the clear the
when you're getting
what's it called again? The defibrillator.
Defibrillator. No,
like for your brain, like it's gonna.
I mean, it stimulates, but I hope it doesn't feel like that. I don't know if you've ever gotten. I know you've gotten shocked, but you never got shot like that
in your brain. Yeah.
That can stop your heart right there. But anyway, do I think that all that stuff is going to benefit us to where certain elements that we have now are going to be a thing of the past? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You even bring up different things that work that wasn't in the past, and now in the
today it's like
today
easy,
it's working.
yeah.
Those GLPs, peptides.
Yeah.
I think peptides, and as I learn more and more about them, I think that's what gene therapy and peptides are going to be the kind of thing that's really going to how we're going to be treating people.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll use stem cells. It will become less and less expensive, so people can afford that.
Yeah, like
right now when I do it, it still costs a chunk of change for me to do it and grow it, and for the company to grow it, and then come back. And then once it's grown, then I can give it to you in your knee and your shoulder. Yeah. You got IV. Some treatments that I have for patients that have issues with their lungs, we'll give it to them IV because you go through what's called a pulmonary first pass effect. Anything in your vein will go immediate to your lungs.
You could
first.
stem cell through that IV, or
oh yeah, definitely.
How are they normally? Are they injected?
Yeah, you can inject with stem cells. You can do anything. You can put them in the spine. You can put them in the joint. You can put them, in the skin. You can breathe them in. I don't know how well that is, but the other thing is IV. IV is probably one of the strongest ones because those cells will know within your body where they need to go to heal whatever your issues are.
Yeah.
And we also use exosomes, which exosomes essentially tell the stem cells what to do. Okay. And some people believe in exosomes more than they believe in stem cells. Either way, both of them together, and they can do a lot of cool stuff.